Discipline is bound up with several factors, such as learner's age, the context, both social and institutional, the teacher and the student's role, and the emotional relationships among them. An example is given by the reading when they mention that Spanish teachers are more inclined to tolerate a louder level of noisiness rather or in comparison to their British counterparts. It is without a question a fundamental situation that should be considered in the language classroom, and we've all experienced it either in our teacher or in our learner's role. We'll take R's definition for discipline, in which he stated that teacher and learner accepts and consciously observe a set of rules about behavior in the classroom, whose function is to facilitate learning. Classroom discipline is a central concern for many teachers, myself included. It can modify our beliefs and even reshape our personalities. Discipline is closely related to classroom methodologies, since various teaching methodology seems to be in direct contradiction to what's perceived as teachers' reality at a school. Therefore, creating teachers' resistance towards some activities that are considered threatening for class control. For example, we have communicative language teaching, which suggests conventional organization of a classroom should be reconsidered to encourage innovation and flexibility, where students are expected to speak as much, if not more, than the teacher. An important issue is therefore teachers' control. It's common that interactions given in the classroom take place under the teacher's own pace, risking for students to not feel involved. Such control can be extended to language, either by correction or even by language teaching, and excessive control can alienate learners and inhibit the learning process. According to research, a good and positive reinforcement will always prove more effective than punishment. Using L1 in the classroom has always been a controversial issue, and there is no clear posture towards it yet. The reasons towards and against using L1 depend mainly on the type of activity, the teacher's beliefs, and teachers' and students' views on the usage of L1 and L2 in the classroom. There are definitely no rules towards it, and teachers' response should be designed or determined by students' own needs. There are three reasons that justify usage of L1 in the classroom according to Atkins. The first one is when it's a learner's strategy. The second one is that it's a humanistic way of teaching since it avoids frustration. And finally, the third one is that it's time-saving. I don't particularly agree with the third one, however it's mentioned in the reading. It's important to keep in mind that interaction in the target language plays a vital part in promoting language learning. Therefore, excessive depending towards L1 or the mother tongue should be discouraged in order for the following situations to be avoided. First, that the teacher and the students feel that they have no really understanding of any item until they have been translated. 2. That there are no longer any differences between the mother tongue and L2, so then teacher and students begin to translate into rather inaccurate phrases. Number 3 is that students speak to the teacher in their mother tongue even though they are already able to use the target language. The next one is that students are unable to see that there are some tasks for which English is vital of them to use. And finally, students become passive. Most importantly, it's important to keep in mind that the language used by the teacher is sometimes the only opportunity which students have for hearing meaningful usage of the L2. So, overusing the mother tongue may deprive them of valuable comprehensible input. Teacher thinking is a very recent concept for ELT, since it was introduced in the lately 1990s. Teacher thinking is concerned with the private domain, the internal thought and decision-making process a teacher uses while doing her work. It's concerned with the extent to which a teacher's previous learning experiences and knowledge of the subject matter and beliefs about teaching and learning affect classroom practice. A very important situation that it modifies is decision-making. Conceptually, decision-making processes have usually been divided into three phases: the pre-active, the interactive, and the post-active decisions. Pre-active decisions come before a lesson and involves lesson planning or selecting materials. Interactive decisions are those made while making the lesson, while teaching the lesson, and it can involve reacting to a discipline problem or modifying or deciding to not do an activity. And finally, post-active decisions refers to those decisions that teachers make after a session, that can be to modify the next session, to revisit some things seen in the previous session, etc. However, this construct doesn't really reflect what goes on in a teacher's mind while making a decision. According to Loylik, we divide complex teaching activity into a chronological dissection without attention to more meaningful categories. Therefore, isolated variables are emphasized within the pre-active, interactive, and post-active phases without great concern for the interaction between those phases. Therefore, there are a lot of variables that are not considered, that includes the teacher's past experience and a teacher's ongoing experience and how that modifies their behavior over time. Therefore, there are some aspects that need to be considered into this decision making. For example, the way in which we were taught, our beliefs about the learners, and the affective climate we promote in our classroom.